Welcome, everybody, to our PDA Town Hall for May 25th, 2025. I just realized this is 52525. Well, that is palindromic, isn't it? So welcome, everybody.
In fact,
And
Alan, it will be palindromes all week long. I don't know if you've realized that.
you're right, because the middle number.
It's exciting stuff.
Wow, this is great times we're living in. And in fact, it's been palindromic since the 20th, right? Is that right? Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Hartzell. How silly am I not to have realized that? I recommend the palindromic song, which is really quite spectacular, by Weird Al Yankovic, if you've never heard it, which is his riff on Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues with the famous video where Dylan has those flashcards and he flashes them down. And yet every lyric is a palindrome from Weird Al Yankovic. And of course, quite the Bob Dylan lampoon, which I can only imagine Mr. Dylan even would have been happy about, because it is an exhibition of verbal acuity that is downright Dylan-esque. So you just heard the voice of Hartzell Gray. I'm Alan Minsky, Executive Director of Progressive Democrats of America. And our featured guest today is Nina Turner. And it's simply just been too long since we've heard from Nina. And I think it's very important for us with Nina Turner in particular to just return to her periodically in these troubling times, because I mean, she's family to PDA, and um, you know, the opportunity to ground us and to um, you know renew our faith in our progressive vision for the country and for the world, and to not turn a blind eye to just how very difficult these times are. And of course, was an especially troubling week, though every week under Trump is an especially troubling week. I loved, to maybe keep it in a little bit good spirits, I loved the Onion headline that America can't believe it's rooting for Harvard. Um, and look, as I take no joy in that, being a Yale man, because I actually wish Yale would do a little bit more like Harvard. In fact, Princeton and Harvard have done better. Yale's not been the worst, but Columbia still gets that medal. But they have not stepped up. And, I actually spoke to one higher up at a different higher educational institution, prestigious one. And maybe this goes to institutions like Yale and other places. They want to stay out of the sites, the direct sites, because, I saw actually a not particularly compelling interview with the Harvard president with the Wall Street Journal, which of course is a very, very right-wing newspaper. Editorially, they do some very good news reporting, of course. Of course, they also do reporting that's important to process and understand if you're following economy and finances, not necessarily that their editorial line is appealing in that regard. But I couldn't believe how horrible the reviewer was. I mean, just, she was more than excusing the fascism of the Trump administration, their attacks on the academy. I actually wish the president of Harvard, he seemed a little cowed, as it were, in the interview. You can find it online. That's a very important struggle. I mean, there's no doubt that, there's critiques we all have. And I think our critique from a PDA perspective is largely a class critique of institutions like Harvard, and their perpetuation of a social elite is, I think, from our point of view, I don't think you can argue against that being a big prominent effect of the uh, highest private educational institutions in the United States, at least in the last 40 years, and going back further, of course, throughout really most of their history. But nonetheless, the theory of the academic institutions, which, by the way, the European university system precedes and the global universities, other non European societies had similar institutions, most distinctly, of course, in the Confucian system in China. But they precede the Enlightenment, but after the Enlightenment, they really become definitional to sort of a post-enlightened, as it were, like progressivism. And to see it so frontally assaulted by the Trump administration is astonishing. And it is something that we at PDA, of course, thoroughly object to and oppose. And this past week, of course, was troubling also because of the budget bill passed by the House. And, even as you see some Republican senators object to the way it balloons the deficit, and you don't really anticipate that what they're going to propose is going to come out on the better side of things, though maybe we have to be vigilant as we watch those negotiations. But it was an absolutely horrible, federal budget that was passed by the House, the worst by a long shot that I've ever seen in my life. And I, was aghast by the ones passed in the Reagan era, and many of them passed ever since. But this is atrocious, and the damage it'll do to American society is profound if even, a significant portion of it, and I do think at least a significant portion of it is going to go forward. So there's a lot to be dismayed about, but there's also a lot to rally for, and I think that'll be the theme of today's town hall. Um, I thank you for everybody who sent me wishes. I did have COVID, 12 days ago, 13 days ago. Last week, I was not in the best shape. This week, my voice is still shaky. So I'm going to try to keep my comments a little short, which is, you probably know by now, is not the easiest thing for me to do. But with that, and then, of course, there's many other rough things that happened over the course of this week. I think we can think of a very few high-profile instances, but without reflecting on those, only because time's limited. We have three people before we introduce our featured guest, and very excited to have an update from the National Coordinator of Young Progressive Democrats of America, Hartzell Gray. And then we'll hear the PDA to-dos from Mike Fox, our weekly thoughts from Donna Smith, and then I'll be introducing Nina Turner. So Hartzell Gray, how you doing today?
Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
I can.
All
And
right.
can we
Go ahead,
co-host
brother.
Hartzell? So if he wants, we can see Hartzell?
I am currently in my Uber, but I'll be home shortly. And then when I
Okay.
get home, I'll throw my pretty mug on the screen. How about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we got a stacked card. We got and some incredible speakers. So I will be brief, but I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. And maybe every couple of weeks we can do this. It's an update on where we're at for YPDA. We had some really great conversations just this last week alone. We met with David Hogg's team. Currently one of the vice chairs for the DNC, who's going through a little bit of a battle right now within the party. We met with his folks and his pack, Leaders We Deserve, and it was awesome. One of the things we stressed was that we wanted to offer solidarity, but also there's of a lot of overlap between YPDA and Leaders We Deserve. Plus, I think that this is a moment for David and his folks where PDA, YPDA, we are home and we have open arms, not closed fist. And I think this is a really great opportunity for us. And on top of that, we also chatted with Deja Fox, who was running in Arizona 7th, and just really chatting with some incredible young people. She's got a debate coming up on Tuesday that I'll drop the link into the chat. And other than that, my friends, we are making some really great strides. Also collaborating with college Democrats. We're putting together what we think will be an incredible super show that is rivaling what Bernie and AOC are doing, but a little bit more hip, maybe a little bit more music, maybe a little bit more DJing. And it's going to be awesome. And we also have maybe even some more news to break off that we'll be telling folks here very soon, even maybe personally related. So that's all I've got, Alan. Back to you, my brother.
Well, I will say this. So Hartzell, hang on for a second. I do have to. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that PDA is very proudly endorsed in that race, not for the candidate that you mentioned, but for our guest.
Yes, I need to make sure I said it. Yes, yes, yes. Sorry. We
And as well,
YPDA, we're very proud and we love our independence and objectivity. So yeah, I do need to make sure I say that. We have not actually even made an endorsement in that race ourselves. We're still getting our endorsement process all finalized. But yeah, if you want to just see an impressive young person who also and you're gonna see some another familiar face also on stage, we'll drop the link and I think it'll just be a really interesting viewing, I think, honestly, for us to take a look at. Two great
uh,
progressives for sure.
yeah, and thank her for running. She stepped up and running, though. From my point of view, the best thing she can do for the progressive cause would be. I do think it's going to be. It's considered a two-person race, and I would encourage her to consider endorsing Alila, Alila Grahal, alas. But thank you for that, Hartzell. And thank you for the fantastic update about YPDA. And as you can tell, YPDA is operating with a great degree of autonomy, which is how we've set it up. And they are on the cutting edge, right, Hartzell? I think it's fair to say.
Oh
And
yeah.
and then also with David Hogg, who's hasn't said anything that opposes the PDA platform. He hasn't wholeheartedly embraced the entirety of it. That's not because he doesn't agree with it or he won't in time. But
When we talk about Big Tent, this is what we're talking about. I want less Mark Cubans and rich folks, and I want more of people who have open minds and are ready to do a thing.
oh,
And
absolutely,
I tell you right
absolutely.
now, in talking with his folks, I tell you what, we are way more aligned than I even think. I even think that we give him credit or he gives himself credit for. So I think that we that's the if we're that's my Big Tent.
Oh yeah.
Less Liz Cheney's and influencers and more folks who want to be 10 toes on the ground with us. How about that?
I love it actually. I love it a lot actually. And no, we are of course look moderate Democrats who and I'm not saying that that's the case with the Leaders We Deserve team. They seem to be quite sincerely progressive leaning. And but for moderate Democrats, we're got to be realistic. We got to be pragmatic. I know the primary season hasn't happened yet for the 2026 election, but there are going to be a lot of moderate Democrats who are going to win Democratic primaries, almost 100% certainly. And we have to persuade them. We have to persuade them. We have to have an open tent. We have to welcome them in. And they're going to be caucusing with us progressives who win. And we need to convince them that the progressive way forward is the way to go. And just, get contact their inner FDR and their inner Hartzell Gray. Hartzell, thank you. That was brilliant. Mike Fox.
Whoop, my apologies, sir. It was multitasking. You rock, Hartzell, as always. All right, gang, our to-dos. To-do number one. Uh, my to-do number one is to thank you, everybody, for being here. You make me healthier. This is literally healthcare for me. And so I thank you all for being here each and every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And so our to-do number one, or I should say to-do, for all of us, our to-do number one, my first to-do was thank you. Revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it here, okay? This is a space where we show solidarity with each other, we uplift each other, we share good news, we have very open eyes about the challenges before us. There is no question. However, we likewise recognize that we can overcome this, but the only way that we do is with love in our hearts and showing solidarity with each other and always moving towards the light, never getting overwhelmed by the darkness. Okay. All right. So, to do number two, take notes. We got a great big fat list of to dos this week. And Nina's going to be, no doubt, coming at us with some inspirational ideas that conceivably you have not considered before. So, you're going to want to take notes. Okay. Now, time and treasure from an actual getting down and getting to the work. We have got a crazy busy week in front of us, okay? So, number one is I need phone bankers. We need phone bankers, phone bankers, phone bankers, because we've got that Adelita race, Adelita Grijalva in Arizona 7. There's going to be a special organizing call for primarily folks in Arizona. However, everybody on this call is welcome to show on Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock Arizona time. So East Coast folks, gonna be a little late. It'll be 10 o'clock our time. However, our Thursday campaign call, which is a little bit earlier for us on the East Coast, will likewise cover that, as well as other campaigns that we're doing. So bottom line, Tuesday is all about Arizona 7, getting in the game. Vote by mail ballots drop in a matter of a couple of weeks. So, I mean, we need to be talking to voters right now. Okay. So, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. And number two is, yes, number two is also helping us push out for the disabilities issue organizing team meeting on Wednesday. Crazy busy week, gang. On Wednesday, where our featured guest is our good friend and absolute powerhouse, Alex Lawson of Social Security Works. Nina, I don't know if my head could handle Nina and Alex in the same space coming at me. Bottom line, I mean, they are inspirational folks. And he'll be discussing all the attacks on Social Security, et cetera, and how that's going to affect our disabilities community. I'll be tossing those links into the chat. so that you can sign up for those. Spread it, spread it, spread it, and hit that volunteer link to jump on the phone bank. Okay. And then finally, fundraising, fundraising, fundraising. We definitely need to bump things up. We had kind of a tough week last week, so we need to bump that up. My number one goal is for everybody to be in solidarity, 100%. So if all you can do is $1, great, pile on. Okay. However, if you can do more, please do. Or if it's a small amount that you can handle, think about doing that monthly. That really helps us out from a budgeting standpoint. Those monthly donations, we know this amount's coming in. All right, you can budget around that, right? Okay. So if you do not see the links that we're tossing in the chat to phone bank and or donate, just go to pdamerica.org and there are the links right there. Hit it, make it happen. We'll be back at the top of the hour to see where we're at on our goals. Okay, back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Mike Fox. And Donna Smith, what's on your thoughts? What's on your mind this week? And thank you again for joining us, Donna. And every week you provide us with guidance and inspiration. And what are you thinking through this week?
Well, Alan, you're so right. I've been thinking for a while about the stress that all of this puts on all of us. And I know I'm feeling it. I'm sure other people are feeling it too. You start to think less effectively. You start to, you have, unless you plan sometimes to breathe. And Alan, I have to believe that you're getting sick is partly because you're running yourself ragged mentally, emotionally, physically. This is a hard time for all of us. Any of us who care deeply about this country, this is a tough time, but we will get through it. There have been other very difficult times in this country and many of us have lived through some very difficult times in this country, and we got through them. And we got through them together by fighting back. I was just thinking when Alan, you were talking about Harvard, and it made me laugh a little bit, but you were talking about Harvard and Yale, and I'm not a graduate of those. I went to Colorado College, which is a small liberal arts college in Colorado Springs, good one.
Great school.
Yeah, it's a good school, good school. And then went to law school and then decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. So that's an interesting turn of events, I'm sure, for the family. But in any case, I was thinking about, I don't know how many people on this call know what Phi Beta Kappa is. Or how many people are Phi Beta Kappa? Are you Phi Beta Kappa, Al?
I was not. No, I was not. I didn't. My grades were not that exceptional. Not at that level. They were good, of course, but they were not at that level.
I have always felt very honored and blessed that I was named Phi Beta Kappa in my graduating class. But the reason I tell people that now is because I'm recalling one of the responsibilities of being named in that academic group was to continue the tradition, the rich tradition they had for a long time of resistance and of quiet resistance, of thoughtful resistance, of thinking through the problems and coming up with some of the best, most informed decisions about what needs to be done in the country. And I still very much value the fact that I've connected with Phi Beta Kappa online. Believe it or not, people don't know this, but we have a private handshake. We have a secret handshake that has been handed down in Phi Beta Kappa since Thomas Jefferson's time. And it's interesting to me that I have felt so, even though it seems kind of weirdly a secretive society, in a weird sort of way, it's in the best way, in that people will be able to identify one another and know that they're safe to talk about intellectual subjects, to really get into the deep stuff that this country really deeply needs. Oh, I see another Phi Beta Kappa on there. Who is that? I saw that. That's great. Oh, Tyler. Yay, Tyler. I saw you. The reality is that we all should be thinking carefully right now. And it's hard to do, isn't it? When we're faced with all this, it's really hard to do. Because the minute you start putting your attention to one thing, purposely Trump and his gang do something else to distract you to the next shiny object, instead of leaving us focused on the thing that we need to be laser focused on right now, which is the transfer of wealth to the top of this country. It is happening at a rate we've never seen in this country before. I cannot believe how offensive I thought it was that Trump had his cryptocurrency people in the White House the other night to thank them all for their investments in his private cryptocurrency. we got to be thoughtful, folks, but we're going to need to speak up loud, loud. When you think back, and I know this is a little shift of subject, but when you think back to Hitler's time, think back to Hitler's time, who do we wonder the most? We know Hitler was horrible, right? We know he was horrible. Who do we think about the most as having a responsibility to have done something? The people under Hitler,
German
the
people.
citizens of Germany,
Yeah.
the citizens of Europe, the people who could lift and get in there. And that's what we're being called to do right now. And we're not all being called in the same way. I'm hearing more and more young people happy to run for office. That's great. And I'm listening to Hartzell and thinking, I am immensely pleased that YPDA is going on. That is the greatest thing, the greatest thing. And we've got to stay where it is your passion is. Get there and dive in. Alex Lawson will tell us that on Wednesday. I know he will. That get to your passion, the place that you know, the place where you can make a difference, and make that difference now. Don't get distracted by all the other shiny objects at that moment. Alan and the rest of the PDA team will tell us when we need to distract, right, Alan? When we need to move on, you'll tell us or try to, right?
Yes. Yeah. We'll do our best.
Okay. Well, also another episode of Positively Progressive will be coming up soon. I will tell you next week who our guest will be. It's going to be great. So I'm happy about that. And Alan, save your voice. I can't wait to hear Nina Turner. She is a blessing to all of us who fight. And I can't wait to hear her. So back to you, Alan.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little concerned about something in the chat if something was upsetting the people. So I suppose
something I said?
No. Something somebody wrote in the chat. So I think the staff will be on top. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Don, actually. And it is of course especially troubling times on so many fronts. And there's a lot of things that are fraught in the world. And the danger to a democracy in America is so pronounced. The emerging now, we used to call it a plutocracy 8-10 years ago. Now it's oligarchy, pretty clearly.
And it's pretty upsetting, right, Alan? It's gut level upsetting.
It's yeah. I mean, again, the press, the stuff at the universities, the treatment of people who aren't holding green cards or even holding green cards and are not U.S. nationals, though sometimes also U.S. nationals, and that the rank racism that informs it, and there's just the right wing is affecting attempting to affect a full-scale cultural backlash, and of course today is the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And which, of course, obviously horrible things happen in the world. But to witness as the world did the taking of an individual human life by state authority, by an American police officer killing a Black man, and watched around the world, was one of the most traumatic things I think that has ever been socially processed in my lifetime. And the response,
I can still hear his voice.
Yeah.
I can still hear his voice, Alan.
Yeah. And the response, in large part, of the American people in the midst of the pandemic was one of the most beautiful expressions of enough is enough of living in a structural racist society. We all together want to lift out of this. And to pinpoint that moment and the weeks that followed, and then to see how the national political discourse has veered away from that with a huge reactionary backlash, about as depressing as anything imaginable. But I also think when I hear sometimes even fellow progressives try to pressure against, quote unquote, woke language.
Yeah, to heck with that. I'm woke.
Yeah. And not only that, I don't believe that the American people have shed their attitude towards wanting to overcome structural racism. That the millions upon millions upon millions of people who poured into the streets in the middle of a pandemic still believe today what they believed then. And so it's a process of this kind of fabricated, mediated, quote unquote national dialogue, and the a large amount of money invested by the right wing into their AstroTurf media projects to create this phenomenon. And then, of course, the moderate Democrats don't really give anything to the public to support, and that lays the table for the return of Trump, which then amplifies the right wing reactionary backlash. But with all
Alan,
that,
Alan, before you throw to Nina, and I know
yeah,
she's waiting, I just watched in the parking lot of a local store what I thought, and it's going to sound really silly, but there was this little dog that apparently had jumped out of somebody's car and the person drove off. There were like 8 people. Some didn't speak English. Some did. There was 3 Black people. There were all of us trying to make sure that little tiny dog didn't run into a busy street. All of us together. And I thought, that's it. That's what we are. That's what we all are. None of us want to see other people suffer or other creatures suffer. And the more we can lean into that with our fellow human beings all over the place in every way you can. People want tangible stuff to do. Be good. Be good in the world. Do good in the world. And sometimes good will be different to you than it is to other people. But help and talk. Tell people, wow, we can get this done together. You know how the poor little dog got cornered was with food finally. But anyway, the dog did get saved. But I thought, wow, look at this. People getting out of their cars, determined to keep that creature safe without knowing anything else, right?
thank you for that. Yes, I know, and no, there's so much beauty and love amongst the American people, and not only that, I think I think there's a ever increasing embrace against the Trumpian reaction of recognizing the beauty of this country as the most diverse society and country the world has ever seen, and that's where our beauty and our strength lies. Of course, though, the necessity also politically and institutionally addressing things like the realities of structural racism and not just saying, okay, now everything's fine and go forward. I do want to say somebody made a comment in the thread about Gaza. I hadn't mentioned the word Gaza or that. Look, that informs all my thinking today, always on all fronts. So for me, that's just is as much a parallel as everything that's happening here in the catastrophe there. And when Donna said the thing about the German people, certainly as a Jewish self-identified person, I feel that because I really do try and want to be able to convey to my fellow Jewish people across the world in the United States that this is a moment where we have to respond differently than the German people responded, and not that the situations are wholly parallel, of course, but this is a moment where I think Jews need to step up and demand an end to the killing. And I hope everybody can see that is said in the spirit of love for the Jewish people. Walt Whitman poem sung to end at the beginning of Bob Dylan's 84th birthday. That was on the 24th, isn't it? 21st, 24th? I forget. Okay, well, all of that. Nina Turner, welcome. And I, of course, meant to call you earlier, but Donna was saying such fertile thoughts. We continued the dialogue, but just right off the bat, your reflections on the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alan, and to the PDA family. It's always a tremendous honor to be with you. I was sharing with Alan backstage, so to speak, that I have this meeting set in my calendar to never end as optional, because you guys know I'll pop in from time to time, even when I'm not on the agenda. Donna, big ups to you and everything that you had to say. We do have to find the beauty and we have to find the fight. Those two things go together. They are not diametrically opposed. And oftentimes we think if we have to fight, we can't find the beauty. No, we must find the beauty to be able to continue to fight. Though we got to be able to do those. Man, as I reflect on George Floyd, this country's unfulfilled promises lay heavy on my mind. As a Black woman in America, I am not surprised that not much has changed since he was murdered, or as Dr. West would say, publicly lynched. In the DNA of this country, and I know it's hard, it's gut-wrenching, it's crushing. Imagine how I feel and other Black people feel
Right.
to have to come to the realization that Black lives really do not matter. So for people who think this is some kind of mystery, or they might clutch pearls because I said that, that is the reality that Black people in America navigate every single day. That in the United States of America, the country as we know it now, the country as it was being the inception of the country, even with all the beautiful words, was never designed for descendants of enslaved people to walk around free. I'm gonna just let that sit for a minute. It's hard. It was never designed. But just because the reality of this nation was that you had Black people themselves who then were allied with other people from other walks of life who said, we reject the design. We just gonna reject the design. We not going with it. And so that resistance among Africans and then their American descendants first, because other people didn't set Black people free. Black people set Black people free. Let's go on and straighten that out. But we had some allies. We had to have some allies. So yeah, there were some white sisters and brothers rocking with that. There were some Native American sisters and brothers rocking with that. Hell, there were some that wasn't rocking with that. Let's be honest about that as well. So the design was rejected. And that's what we must do in this moment. We must reject the design. So George Floyd, we cannot let his life be in vain, but there are many George Floyds before George Floyd. So that's why for me, Alan, the historian in me, is like, yeah, am I mortified to be able to see something like that in my lifetime instead of teaching it in my African-American history classes? Oh yeah, I'm mortified. But the historian in me says we've been here before. So that realization that we must continue to change the design, and even understanding when Black people are liberated in that way, everybody else is liberated in that way. This is not just the burden of Black people, and Black people are not the only ones that benefit. But unless we can have an open, honest conversation about the fact that there have been many George Floyds, and unfortunately there have been many other. It's not just the violence against him, the physical violence, the physical nature of a law enforcement officer who took an oath to protect and serve. And by the way, my son is in law enforcement too, but I'm gonna put that in the parking lot, who put his knee on this man's neck as he begged for his life. He said, I can't breathe. That did not move that man. That is viscerally disturbing to us. But what also should be equally disturbing is the lack of generational wealth for Black people in this country. That should be disturbing. The fact that we don't have universal health care in this country, which would impact everybody, but disproportionately impact Black people, because Black people are disproportionately poor, not numerically, because there are more white sisters and brothers rocking in this country who live in poverty every single day, but disproportionate to our numbers. That should be disturbing too. Children living in poverty should be disturbing. Police violence should be disturbing. All of those things, Alan, should be just as disturbing as seeing what that police officer did to George Floyd, because what he did and his callous indifference, as people who were walking by saying to him, get your knee off his neck. And he looked at them like they were from outer space. That should be disturbing as well. As disturbing as that was, it is just one sampling of what Black people have to endure in this country every single day. The whole notion of macro or micro aggressions. It is how we live every day. So my heart aches for the family. My heart aches for us as a nation that we have not made more progress than this. But what happened to him is just a regular day in Black America.
Yeah, and the prison industrial complex, as you said at the top of your comments, we're 5 years on from an outpouring into the streets that was as great as anything in the time frame that it was transpiring, and in the context of a pandemic, as any set of protest demonstrations the country has ever seen. And I remember, see, I've always paralleled the situation of the people, of the Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank too, and in general, to the situation around the protests, Black Lives Matters protests that you know, obviously with the crescendo of George Floyd reaching its apex, but there was a whole set of different cell phone videos that surfaced, and people would come into the streets, and every time people would believe something would change. Not many people didn't believe that, but there was this sort of sentiment expressed that now change will happen. There's awareness, something will happen, and nothing ever changes. And I felt it's always been the same situation with the Palestinian struggle, because there were waves upon waves of, bombings of Gaza, Israeli crimes against settlers in the West Bank. Obviously, after October 7th and what's happened in Gaza since is at a level beyond anything we've seen previously, which in some senses you can almost, actually at the DNC, I was on a panel with Abbas and Jim Zogby and Rania Batrice and Wahid Shalib at Rainbow Push, and they were concentrating on whether there would still be a Palestinian speaker at the DNC, and I spoke about my worry that if the slaughter in Gaza subsides just a little bit and a ceasefire occurs, everybody will just go home and everything will remain the same. And the catastrophe is so off the charts in Gaza that the only possible positive resolution going forward is a constitutive change in the establishment of rights for the Palestinian people, and however they negotiate what they desire in terms of statehood and land, etc. And similarly with the George Floyd uprising, but as you say, and it's heartbreaking, and it continues because nothing has changed around mass incarceration. I don't believe there's been an iota of change in terms of the racial wealth gap.
Not at all, Alan. There has not been.
Right.
Matter of fact, Black people own a little more of the, well, a little more, just a little bit. No, nothing has changed, and that's what I'm saying. What happened to George Floyd, as tragic as it was and is just an example of what happens, the types of violence that is perpetrated against Black people every single day in this country. It might not be as in our face as what happened to George Floyd, but this type of violence is as I said, welcome to a day in Black America. It's only one aspect of Black America, but it is in fact an aspect of Black America. The fact that Black Americans are so resilient, that
Absolutely.
this country would be pretty boring without us.
Oh, hell yeah, for sure.
Sister Turner, can I ask you a question real quick?
Go ahead, Hartzell. Yeah, I was going to call on you next time. I was going to speak and not speak myself, but call on you.
Hartzell.
I love you. It's so good to see you.
You too.
I'm so curious what you think about this, because you're walking right into what I'm trying to ask you. We're living now in this backlash moment. In fact, maybe we haven't left the backlash since Obama, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah.
And so can you explain how in that backlash to Black people, how that actually now is a backlash, or always has been, a backlash towards not just Black people, but poor people, marginalized people? Like the overt target is on Black folks, but how this is interconnected with all of us. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it, Hartzell, and that's why a lot of people don't understand why I center Black. I'm centering Black. Well, first of all, I'm a Black woman, so I got to center my Blackness. I mean, if I don't love myself first. But the more global reason why I do is because of what you just said. Overtly, it is always about Black people, because the first original sin in this country was chattel slavery, notwithstanding the taking of the Native Americans' land. And so every other marginalized community should be concerned about what happens to Black people, because it's only a matter of time before it is your community too. So in that way, we are always interlinked. I've said, maybe not necessarily to this group, but I've said to several people that I think marginalized communities definitely owe the African American community a debt of gratitude, even though those communities, some individuals recognize that, Hartzell, but the vast majority of them do not. And it is always refreshing to see other communities lift up and say, hey, if it wasn't for the Black liberation struggle, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to have the rights that we have. And so that's something we got to come to grips. When people think about anti-Blackness, they often think that it is only coming from our white sisters and brothers and family and friends. Anti-Blackness is a mindset that is permeated all over this world. And when we think about the United States of America, just because somebody might not be white, they might be of another ethnicity, does not mean, or race, which race is a social construct, don't even get me started, but I'm using the language that we use. They can be just as anti-Black as anybody else. So yeah, when they come for Black folks, they're coming for everybody else. And the class part of it, Hartzell, where you get, this is a class and a caste fight. Because to the extent that they can continue to get working class people fighting each other over stuff that ain't even our stuff, then we take our eye off of, oh my God, we're all being oppressed here. Now the oppression is heavier based on caste, but we are all suffering. You know, Dr. William Barber did this great book with another writer, I'm forgetting the title, but he wrote all about white poverty. It's just all about it, the deep-seatedness of it. So we gotta have people see ourselves. I gotta be able to see my reflection in you. Now you can't just be a class reductionist now. It just can't be just about class. You gotta have the courage to talk about race. And when you talk about race, you got to start with anti-Blackness. There's no other way around that. There's a however to this. This is a class and a caste fight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and of course, obviously, labor exploitation is at the heart of land theft from indigenous people, so wealth generation, and then labor exploitation is at the heart of the racial caste system.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
By the way, my daughter, it's a very difficult year to have a junior in high school, and I really feel she's not on the call. I can't really express this to her because she's got to sort of barrel through and get stuff done. What a tough year to be a junior in high school. She gets to go on her first college tour looking at colleges when the very week, I think I lost. Oh, I'm on still. Okay. The very week that Columbia was capitulating to Trump. So yeah, a lot of respect for academic institutions in America in that week. And then she's taking AP US history class. And what you said, Nina, about the gratitude for, Black liberation struggle of all oppressed peoples, certainly in the context of the United States, that's apparent in the AP US history test this year. Next year, I'm not sure it'll be there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to a point that Hartzell was making about backlash. There's progress, and right after progress, there's backlash. And especially if that progress is related in any way to Black people. I want people to think, now that I want you to think about too. Sister Turner ain't making this up. This is real.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to understand the ebbs and flows of justice. That's why I often say, justice is not a destination, it's a journey. It is never over. But if you can think that whenever there is progress specifically designed to undo harm, because you got to ask yourself, well, why do we need diversity, equity, inclusion? Why do we need affirmative action? You got to ask yourself the why, and the why dictates that because Black people were deliberately, systemically excluded, and some even killed when they made economic progress. This is the why. So, Alan, they're going to, because see, they don't want people, they want to keep people ignorant.
Right.
Because see, now if I could tell you some of this history, I might be able to move you. But I do believe, as the great Jane Elliott, the creator of the blue-eyed, brown-eye experiment, if any of you have never heard of her, go on and Google her real quick. She's one of my heroes. She basically said education doesn't move people. Emotions move people. So I need you to understand something here, but I need to move you from here. And all of these bigots, it's not just Trump. Trump ain't the only one, but the zeitgeist of this nation, the DNA of this nation dictates that people have to deconstruct their construction. We are all constructed in a certain way. The socialization in this country is that black is bad and white is good always. And there is no in between. And so those of us who are conscious minded are constantly fighting against that. Even if you are black, you can start to believe it. So
You know,
thank God your daughter gets that exposure. But the reason why the Trump administration or any
right.
other authoritarian type, the first thing that goes is the truth.
Yeah, and no, as for the heart connection too, though, I mean, the cultural and artistic contributions of Black Americans are vastly greater than the portion of the population. You know, it's astonishing, right? I mean, yeah,
This is Donna. Can I say something to Nina though? Nina, I know you're talking about the ebb and flow of progress and backwards movement, but I know one thing for certain. In all of my 70 years, Nina, I never heard a Black woman speak the truth like you do. That is progress. Really, that is real solid progress. And I don't ever want you to underestimate how powerful your progress is in the world in bringing so many women who feel so alone to hear you say these things in the way you do, to make us understand where the structural racism is coming from, where in our own hearts we're broken and we need to fix it, right? Nina, you are progress. You are progress. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I said
Oh
that.
my God. Thank you, Donna. I mean, you're absolutely the best. I see Dr. Langford putting hearts up, hearts so smiling. And then I need to shout out Patricia, who put in the chat, I am a white woman and I love you. And I
oh yeah,
wish the Democratic Party had not screwed you. And she got like a million exclamation points. So
oh
Yeah,
Patricia,
ain't that the truth? Oh my God. I
no,
remember
thank you
Philadelphia.
for
I wanted
that.
to take people out. Nina, I
Yeah,
remember Philadelphia. I wanted to take people out on your behalf.
I know
wow,
PDA was right there with me as you always have been. And so I don't take for granted what you are saying, and I need to hear it because oftentimes when you are on the front, the people on the front line get shot first.
Oh yeah.
You know, so there's a courage to be there. There's a consequence for everything that we do, and there's also a consequence for being on the right side. And you're not always rewarded for being the thermostat, as Dr. West calls me. You know, some people are the thermometer. He said, I'm the thermostat. It's not always pretty. And time will catch up with you eventually, but you go through a lot. So think of any great trailblazers, not just from the Black American tradition, but any tradition where somebody spoke out for justice. It wasn't pleasant for them at the time. I think about that comment that was used against me when I was asked after the 2020 what to expect, and I was like, it's like, in the general, it's like a half a bowl of excrement. I said the words. I don't want to offend anybody on the call, and that was one of the things that they were able to use against me in my election because it was such a pro-Democrat time. See, timing is everything too, and boy, have I been proven, Lord have mercy, have I been proven right about the half a bowl between the both of them. The fact that the American people did not want to see a rematch between either president. The fact that President Biden is going to have to answer for lording over genocide. It started with him. President Trump could make a different decision, but he's not. So I was absolutely right, Donna Smith, but I had to pay a consequence for being ahead of my time. And so for PDA, anybody who is a true progressive, not perfect, but what we believe in will fundamentally change the way people live in this country by giving everybody
Yeah.
the greatest opportunity to live a great life, a good life. We are ahead of our time. You are ahead of your time. You just got to know that. But guess what? It's going to catch up with us because I'm going to use healthcare as an example. This situation is untenable. So these naysayers can talk all of this mess, these neoliberals, these conservatives, these people who are rejecting healthcare. But what we have right now is untenable. And so it's going to come to an end one way or another. We just got to stay the course on these issues, these human rights, these social justice. What does it mean to create a human rights economy? What does that look like? And I know that Alan and the whole 21st century economic bill of rights, you and Dr. Harvey K, and what I'm adding, expanding that is the freedom budget for all Americans. It's everything that progressives are fighting for right this minute. So thank you, Donna Smith. Alan, that was a long way for me to engage, but I do appreciate what Donna had to say from like all of my being, because Black women in particular take a brunt. And I'm not saying that all Black women are created equal. Don't get me wrong. See, I'm not like them neoliberals. I don't do that. I don't believe that just because you're a woman, you should get it. Now, what I do know is that this country discriminated against women just because of their gender. That I do know. And Black people because of their race and or ethnicity. I get all that. But I ain't gonna just vote for you just because you're a woman or just because you're Black. But as a Black woman, I shouldn't even have to qualify that. I want to know where you stand on issues of justice. That's what I want to know. And then if you stand up for justice and you part of my tribe, now if you got a whole lot of melanin, then that's just extra. That's extra beautiful, But progressives, we are ahead of our time. We just got to continue to fight this. We might not live to see it, some of us, but we will have universal health care in the United States of America. I want you to hold on to that. Alan, we so off, whatever. I don't know.
No, and by the way, one of the things that happens is people send me some very beautiful thoughts in the chat, because we turned the chat off on the featured guests on, but people can direct message me some beautiful thoughts. So thank you to the people I've been exchanging a little bit, and I missed a few things because people send me they want to express their appreciation or comments and so on, and everything. Been appreciative of you, but so I get a little caught up in that. Yeah, tough days, right? that's the general subject of the moment. But also, actually, Ro Khanna, right, your fellow co-chair from the last Sanders campaign, I did an interview with The Nation a while ago, and he pointed out something that then geared me to another thought, which was he had said, out of the wake of this calamity of the Trump administration, a progressive America will be born. It is true, especially when you look at left successes historically across the world over the past few centuries. Anytime where actually entrenched wealth has had to give back to the people, it's almost always come in the wake of a major crisis.
Absolutely.
And so I think this is a moment where a progressive vision being put forward unapologetically, wholeheartedly, is what's going to connect with people, right? Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's promise in the problem, and that's a Turnerism. So anybody that uses it, there is promise in this problem, but only if we harness it. We can't let it pass. This is the moment, because such suffering people are going to endure that they are going to be hungry for an alternative. It is another reason why we cannot continue to just be anti-Trump. Yes, we must point out the neo-fascist policies and ideas and environment that the physical embodiment of him being the president of the United States of America, that's real. All of that's real. And though we have to put forth a vision for the future. And where neoliberals make the mistake is they think that just going anti-Trump is the way. It didn't work in 2016. It didn't work in 2020. And my God, some of them are still doing it now. I've seen people running for office. I won't put these people out there like that. And they running for state level offices and they talking about Trump instead of talking about their vision. They're getting so caught up on that. The freedom budget for all Americans, the 21st century economic bill of rights, those are vision documents. Because what I want to know is what you're going to do when you get the power. As much as I abhor the way Trump is leading this nation, what he has shown us, Alan, to your point, how to use power. And so now what we do know is the Democrats been lying to us all along.
Yeah.
The faithful of the party I lift up, but to the leadership of the Democratic Party, they were lying to us all along. We do need to advance a vision, as Dr. Harvey K just sent a text message to me. It's both and, it's not an either or. And the reason why I say the leadership of the Democratic Party, another reason why PDA is necessary, has been lying to us. Because this man is still signing executive orders.
Right.
So President Joseph R. Biden, had he wanted to, could have canceled student debt by using the Higher Education Act of 1965 that gave him the authority to do it. And you know what? The hell with it. Just sign executive orders. And we'll take our chances in the court. See, this is what President Donald J. Trump is doing. And if we had somebody with some heart, with intestinal fortitude or ovarian audacity, who was willing to go all up in that White House and start signing executive orders. We gonna do something about homelessness. I'm signing an executive order.
Yeah.
We gonna have single payer health care. I'm signing an executive order. We gonna cancel student debt. I'm signing an executive order. Go ahead and pick your wonderful, beautiful thing.
Right.
I'm signing an executive order and baby, have at it in court.
Imagine if you have it in a first-term president too, and the American people get to vote.
So as much as people are mad, on our side at Donald Trump, what I do respect, not the policies he's pushing, but I respect his use of power.
Well, if it was a first-term president too, and they did that with the checklist that you just mentioned, I'm pretty sure they'd get reelected for a second term. So you at least have 8 years of, American social democracy. Well,
that part, Alan.
Yeah,
that part. That's it.
Yeah.
And most people who are polled,
yeah,
you put the progressive label on. It was just like Obamacare versus the affordable. No, that was not good, y'all. But anyway, put it in parking lot. It had some good features, but it was not, Dr. Langford, that was not the way to go. However, if you don't label it, if you say to someone, is it fair that somebody should go bankrupt because as a human being, they are plagued with cancer? Most normal people would say, no, Senator Turner, that's not fair that somebody should go bankrupt because as a human being, they got cancer. Do you think people should be putting insulin on credit cards? No, Senator Turner, I don't think people should put insulin on credit cards. Do you think folks should be unhoused in a hegemonic nation? We got money to increase the Pentagon budget, but we don't have money to make sure that our fellow human beings at least have a basic roof over their heads. Most people would say, Senator Turner, that's ridiculous.
Do you know in the stay-at-home post-pandemic Zoom meeting era, the amount of unoccupied office building space in the United States versus the number of unhoused Americans? I mean, it's got to be. There are a ton of unhoused Americans, and it's a catastrophe.
Remember that time we were together and walked by this man? I'll never forget. He left a mark, and you were like, "We are the only species." Alan Minsky said this to me. He said, "We are the only species that will walk past one of our own like that."
Yeah.
Jesus.
Apparently, among higher mammals, all those species will go and they'll nudge them, they'll sniff them, they'll see if they're
try to figure out how can I help you.
Yeah.
No, not us. We blame them instead.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible, beyond horrible. And it's, I'm old enough to have been before Reagan, and there were not floods of people destitute there's a lot of social detritus in St. Louis, Missouri, where I grew up at the time, but there weren't legions of homeless people who are going and then people walk right over them.
Alan is, and what is it, $20 billion? I mean, it depends on which number you use, but we got a number for what it would take to eradicate homelessness, but yet instead of doing that, we increased the Pentagon budget to trillions of dollars. So policies are choices, and they're not immutable. They can be changed. We must reject. And listen, we can talk about some of the great things that America is. I'm not here to tell you that there's nothing great about America. But when I hear make America great again, I'm saying for whom? And which part? I mean, where are you taking me back to? Because I don't want to go too far back.
Right.
You know what I mean? So America can be great. America can be greater if
Mm.
it does these things.
You know, Summer Lee has a strong reparations bill this time. And
Yes, which I support.
yes, and so do I very strongly. And when people, you know, look, we all love Bernie, but yes, I disagree with him in 2016 when he didn't agree to support reparations.
Yeah, I did too. Obviously, I stuck with him, but I disagree too.
Yeah, and I just don't understand how people. To me, it's just like a no-brainer. I mean, my dad was an economist, but I don't think anybody who can just look at a balance sheet, a ledger, and wealth and where wealth is today, clearly the line is drawn straight through from the history.
Alan, I
Yeah,
mean, think about this.
yeah,
You got these conservatives always talking about pay your debts, pay your debts, pay your debts. Well, you damn right, pay your debts.
there
And
you
there's a
go.
debt owed to
Yeah,
the descendants of
yeah,
enslaved people.
yeah, for
Pay
sure.
your debt. Because the
Yeah.
reason why this country is a hegemonic nation is because of that forced labor. So you got to realize that how can you not understand that forcing people for hundreds of years, generationally, to work for free, and then after legal chattel slavery, you put up all other kind of mechanisms and barriers, debt peonage, sharecropping. You could kidnap black folks, put them in jail, lie on them, all of that kind of stuff built into both the de facto and de jure practices of the United States of America. You have the Homestead Act that gave
Mhm.
160 acres of land to white folks,
Right.
male heads of household, and then also white people who weren't yet American. But yet black
Right.
people couldn't get in on that, and we couldn't even get the little 40 acres and a mule. You have
Yeah.
got to recognize that that debt is owed. Why it pains people to admit that, it just boggles my mind, Alan. It just really
See,
does.
but this is a point that I think is very important. If a gajillion people, because so many people went out and day after day after day on the streets of America. Now, those demonstrations were against cop violence, against Black people, and George Floyd and the video sparked the demonstrations. But my memory serves me pretty well, I think, and I recall it was a demand to really address all of this whole scale. And right, yeah, and you had a lot of younger people really, really going along with it. See, I don't think this push from moderate Democrats to be temperate in the vision that's put forward serves anybody. And I don't think it's a winning political
Well,
hand. Yeah.
but it serves them, Alan. It
Mm,
serves them. Because if
mhm.
you are more concerned with keeping your seat and being able to be reelected over and over and over again, it benefits them as individuals. They might not be as blatant, they might not be as overt with their racism and their classism, but baby, there really is no difference. Not much when you get down deep. Now there may be some superficial differences, but when you get down deep, they all serving the same master, Alan. And then let me double back to reparations. Slave
Mm.
owners were paid reparations. I'm American.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right.
You paying them for the loss of their property, air quotes. And you mean to tell me now y'all America got a problem because had they paid the debt when they should have paid the debt, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. And black people, black descendants of enslaved people would be theoretically in a better economic position than they are as a group. The lowest wealth, and I'm talking about wealth, I ain't talking about income, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
a job. The lowest generational wealth of any other group. And we tilt this soil. We
Yeah.
built these buildings. We made America what it is today. And then you got a president who gonna go get some Afrikaners.
Oh God. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well,
Really?
I mean, he's an off the chart
The man
proto-fascist.
is. But you know what? The neoliberals enabled this, Alan. They did.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, the
Had
thing
they
about
won, I'm not so much as sad as I'm mad. Had they done what progressives were asking, they would have won to the point that you made earlier, and we may not have had a President Donald J. Trump 2.0. However, there's promise in the problem because also we would have kept living in lullaby land.
yeah.
Because just because President Biden wasn't as brazen as President Donald J. Trump does not mean that we didn't have systemic problems that needed to be addressed. They were problems under Biden. They were problems under first Trump term. They were problems under President Obama. Problems just going back. None
And
of
even
the stuff that we're talking about is new.
and even the stuff, well, also the thing that happened with Biden at the end. I mean, it's a product of this.
They lied to us, Alan.
Yeah, well, acquisitive individualism and careerism. This
That's
guy
it. They lied to us.
clearly had to step aside, and he couldn't communicate even the things that were achieved positively in the administration.
They lied, Alan. They lied to us,
Mm-hmm.
and they made people like us. Anybody that of note that went out and said we need a real primary. You know what they would say to people like me? Oh, you want Trump to win again? No, it's exactly the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But I got called everything but a child of God. Congressman Dean Phillips had the courage. Now, whether you agree with all his politics, that's not what I'm talking about. He had the intestinal fortitude to say, I'm going to run. And the Democratic Party blocked him every chance that they could get. He had to go to court to try to stay on ballots. The same thing for Dr. West or Marianne Williamson. They pushed Robert Kennedy Jr. over into the arms of the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
Democratic leadership did that, and Democratic leadership needs to own it. And then Congressman, Julian Castro, was he a congressman? He ran in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
He made a comment about he was vice president, but about Biden's mental capacity. And I don't know where he at. They done disappeared him. But he got beat up so bad. See, so the Democratic Party is not pure in any sense. No party is pure because human beings are not pure. But as they talk about President Trump being a threat to democracy, we must recognize that the way that leadership in the Democratic Party comports itself is also a threat to democracy. Again, neoliberalism kills you slower and neo-fascism kills you quick.
Well, neoliberalism begat Trumpism and will begat it again. Is that the
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm not so good on my King James. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. it'll come back again.
We all know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And listen, the same people who got us in this mess are not the people we should entrust to get us out. So I believe all that leadership should go. That's just me, all of them.
Oh, they're stumbling and
every single one of them. And if the Democratic Party leadership right now doesn't try to change course and stop playing games, we're going to be in the same situation. The people who are going to get hurt are the people who need government the most, and that is what angers me. Some people are going to be able to weather the storm a little better than others, but we all in this storm.
Mike Fox, why don't we come forward with our updates on our PDA to-dos? I sort of told myself and my health I was going to get off at 2:30, but Hartzell and Donna, and then let's take a quick stack of people to just share thoughts with Nina and Mike Fox. You got the floor.
All right, I will be brief because I'm sure folks want to speak with Nina. And I'm sure Nina will likewise give me positive energy for thanking people. Got to build some love in the room. I want to thank everybody. The following folks have donated today. We want to thank Patricia and phone banker Erica double dipping, and Brad and phone banker Aaron double dipping, and Laura and Neil and phone banker Rick and Peter and Margaret and phone banker Beverly. Look at all those folks double dipping. Phone banker Michael, phone banker Betsy, Dennis, and phone banker Michael out in Colorado, and Deborah and Quincy, Dr. Sonneborn out in beautiful California, double dipping as always, as well as in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, double dipping Dr. Deutsch. Thank you, brother. Every time he's on a call, double dipping. Thank you. And phone banker Jane double dipping, and phone banker Mary Ellen, phone banker Michael. Phone bankers are on fire here, gang. Let's show some love for these people. And finally, Jason, who every meeting she comes to ends up giving us a hand in some way. So thank you so much, Jason. All right, gang. When we wrap the recording, we'll go into a quick family time and we'll dive a little bit more into where we're at on our goals. I'll be tossing into the chat. Tuesday. Everybody pile on our campaign call for Adelita Grijalva, especially folks in Arizona. Wednesday, Disabilities Issue Organizing Team. Alex Lawson in the house. So we got to make that huge. So links for that will be put in the chat. If you do not see those links, you can always hit us up at info@pdamerica.org. We'll get you all the links you need. But use the chat there, gang. Hit those links, sign up, spread it so that we are absolutely rocking those two events this week. Back to you, Alan.
Yes, and I think Donna signed off. By the way, she mentioned bad lightning in her area, and of course, as we all brace for. Does anybody want to take bets on whether this will be the hottest summer in the history of the country, like the last 5 in a row have been? We could take bets on it. Hartzell, though, I can see you're traveling, so I'm worried we might lose you. If you could unmute, there you go, and then your thoughts for Nina, and then we'll go to the set.
Oh, Nina's just the senator is just incredible. I guess I don't have as many thoughts as I just wanted to get Nina's take. I know that what is some updates on We Are Somebody? How's the show going with Dr. West?
Yes.
I guess I'm basically just asking for her to keep plugging away on what else she's working on.
Oh my God, thank you for that, Hartzell. And to PDA family, I'm kind of trying to multitask here, so I took myself off camera, but thank you for that. We Are Somebody is still out there in the trenches doing the great work. I appreciate all the support that we've gotten from PDA. This is about working class people and building that coalition across the country. We are pushing the freedom budget hard. We are also one of the national organizations. We got the party started for the Target boycott itself. 12, 13 weeks of decreased foot traffic at Target as we talk about George Floyd, recognizing that Target turned its back on diversity, equity, and inclusion in ways that it did not have to when it stood up and said that George Floyd could have been the CEO said George Floyd could have been one of his employees. At the time that he said that, he was right, and that was the right thing to say and the right thing to do, but he bent to bigotry. So that boycott is going very well, still going strong. And I'm in partnership with, or we are in partnership with Until Freedom, which is co-founder Tamika Mallory, and also Pastor Jamal Bryant out of Atlanta. Many of you may know he started the Target Fast from Ash Wednesday to Easter, and we're expanding it even more. I got to shout out Dolores Herta, who has joined us in this fight. She has been such a godsend. So as we in Latino Freeze and just all of that. So those are the kinds of things, Hartzell, that we're working on. Dr. West and I in the show is going strong. You can catch us Monday through Friday on KBLA 1580 Talk. You can download the KBLA app, or wherever you get your podcast, just put in Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. Hartzell, I love you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Hartzell. And let's go to great activist in Central Florida, Jim Langford. Then we're going to go to Melissa, then Alex, then Mimi. So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm just going to gush for a minute. Senator Turner, it's inevitable that every time we have you as a guest, or at any time I have any kind of interaction with you, I just get absolutely overwhelmed. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for all of your activism. Thank you for supporting Senator Turner, or excuse me, Senator Sanders. And, just thank you. I'm just absolutely overwhelmed, and I'm very proud to know you and have worked for you. And I'm thrilled that you're here with us again today. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate you. You know that. I always try to give you your shout out when I'm on and I get to talk. So thank you so much.
Melissa Richardson, please unmute. Melissa, go for it.
I'm right here. How are you? Nina.
Hi.
Thank you. I really appreciate, and I tried to listen to your podcast. I just wanted to comment. What happened to George Floyd was terrible, and I'm sorry that the Black community is a victim of what happened to the Native Americans, because the Native Americans were slaves first, and until we get rid of the BIA, I think everybody's going to be a victim long term of the BIA. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Melissa.
much. Yeah, thank you, Melissa, so much, baby. Thank you.
Alex, please unmute.
I'm here to help. I would be happy to, Nina.
Oh, I
Thank you.
appreciate that so much. And Alan, people can go to wearesomebody.org, wearesomebody.org, and please sign up and join us. Please join us in this fight. Donate if you can. I'm so happy that PDA and us are forging alliances. I mean, we've been together all along, but just forging deeper alliances. So hopefully we'll be announcing some great stuff that we're doing together, Alan,
Yes.
soon.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. And everybody should keep their ears peeled for that, and eyes open. And Alex Kirsch, please, you're up.
All right. So first thing first, thank you so much for speaking again. It's always a privilege to talk, and it's a privilege to talk to you again. I'm so glad you brought up Jane Elliott because I want to bring up another quote that she's talked about because a long time ago when she was on Oprah Winfrey, she talked about, brought up the melting pot, right? It's like, why do we need to be a melting pot? We need to be a salad bowl. Here's why. In a melting pot, you don't recognize the diversity that's in there. In a salad bowl, you recognize and appreciate the diversity that's in that salad bowl. You see everything that's essential to make that a salad. You recognize the vegetables, the cucumbers, the tomatoes, stuff like that. Recognizing and appreciating the diversity is what makes us a great country. And I feel like a lot of people get rid of that melting pot idea. But the main thing I want to bring up right now is that, I'll try to be as quick as I possibly can. I'm a person that used to be really bent out of shape whenever somebody told me I had white privilege, but it's because I was not listening. I spoke to, was my time up?
Yeah, just finish the thought, and then we'll go to Nina.
Yeah. So anyway, what happened was that I talked with an old Army buddy of mine, him and I sat together, and he talked about how after his son graduated from high school, he stayed out of trouble, but he's a black gentleman. He stayed out of trouble, and then he bought himself a brand new car, and he got pulled over by a cop and was asked all kinds of questions. What do you do for a living? What's your job? Is this your car? And stuff like that, even though he produced the insurance. And I was like, it would be so wrong of me to tell him, you took it the wrong way. That's not racism. And that's when I realized that I do have privilege. And a lot of people especially people that are white, are so offended when you say that. But it's because they are not listening to what that actually means. And I feel like if more people
Alex?
took to listen about these issues instead of just immediately jumping to the defensive, because we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. If we listened more and understood what that actually meant,
Thank you.
real progressive change in this country. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, everybody try to stay on time in a minute if they can. And thank you, Alex. And Nina, your thoughts.
Oh, amen. I'm with Alex. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. Just amen. Alex is laying it out. Yes.
For sure. So, Mimi, you're up.
Hi, thank you so much, Alan. Hi, everybody. Hi, Senator Turner. Mimi here from Northern California. You rock. You're the queen. That was so inspiring in these difficult times. And you had mentioned you teach a Black History course near the beginning of your talk. Is that public and virtual? And also, I just looked for your Truth Talk on YouTube, and I didn't see it. Is your Truth Talk with Dr. West on YouTube?
It is, Mimi. Go try again. Put in Truth Time. Just put in Truth Time.
Oh, man.
Truth Time with Dr. West and Nina Turner. It should come up. You're absolutely right. Most of the shows are on YouTube. Some are, we do a teaching Thursday. So to your point about class, I'm not teaching a Black History class right now per se. I am going to work on a series though. My team has convinced me to do a public kind of series. But every Thursday on Truth Time, Dr. West and I do teach a Black History course of sorts. So go back and source that. Now that you might not find on YouTube, you have to download the KBLA app, the KBLA 1580 app, or wherever you get your podcast. And so you will hear Dr. West and I teaching lessons about different historic figures or times in ways that you have never heard before. But once I get my public course up, I'll let you know, Mimi. I used to be a college professor at a community college here in Cleveland, and politics took me elsewhere. So I'm not teaching formally in the classroom again. Not yet, but stay tuned. And now that I know you're interested, I'll make sure. And I owe you a text message back. My apologies to you too.
Oh, don't worry about it. You're maybe talking about Mimi Kennedy. I'm a different Mimi.
I'm sorry, Mimi.
It's
Yes,
okay.
I was. Oh,
I'm
Mimi, yes.
Mimi in Northern California. I met
Mimi
you
in
at
Northern
yeah.
California. Yes, man. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And staff, let's close the stack at Dorothy. So Dorothy should be the last person in, and let's, if we can do that. I don't know if this allows it, but if you are, unfortunately, we got to go soon, folks. So, or at least move on to family time. So, but don't anybody drop who has their hand up. Let's go to Nola Frame Gray. Please unmute Nola. Nola, can you unmute, please? Sometimes people are unfamiliar with how to unmute. So let's go then to Michael Neal. Unmute, please, Michael.
There we go. Thank you, Alan. Thank you,
I'm
Senator.
here. I'm
Okay.
here.
Michael, why don't you, since you're a veteran, why don't you hold and let Nola go? Because I don't think you've ever had Nola speak on a town hall. So Nola, you're up, and then Michael. Go ahead, Nola.
Okay. I'm calling because Nina, you had asked why doesn't the government do what needs to be done to change homelessness?
Yeah.
And the answer is very simple. They don't want homelessness fixed because as long as you're homeless, you can't vote. And I know this because I used to work at an agency for people with disabilities. And one of the things quite a few of our consumers did after they were accepted as a client is they applied for and got permission to use our address as a mail drop. And quite a few of them, but the first things they did is they came up to my desk and asked for a voter registration form. So remember, as long as you're homeless and you don't have an address, you can't vote. Now, I've been told that it's different from state to state, so I could be wrong here in California. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I wouldn't doubt. I mean, I listen, the system is something. It's quite disturbing what some people think up. So I wouldn't doubt that there is some truth to that.
Michael Neal, you're up.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator Turner. That was an amazing discussion. What I wanted to talk a little bit about really quickly, I hope, is we spiraled back. We got a little bit of it at the end, but we spiraled back to the very beginning. We talked about how the system needs to break. And I don't disagree. The system, and the system is already breaking itself. But I am wondering, how do we get the system to break so with a minimum of casualties for those who rely upon it at the moment? Because I'm very frustrated with folks that are going to accelerationist ideas that want the system to break, but want the system to get so bad that it inevitably breaks. And I don't think we want that. I think we want the system to break, but I think we want the system to break in an orderly way so that people can actually survive. How do we get people to survive when the system breaks?
Thank you. Great question. Nina, your thoughts?
Yeah, very provocative way. It is, bro. I mean, it's broken. I mean, how do you tell somebody who can't be seen, can't pay for their cancer treatments that we want the system to break pretty? And I'm using that as an example to match what you just said. Now, for the sake of people who just want things to go bad just for the sake of it, I'm rocking with you. But things are already bad. See, and so it's moments like this that refocus our attention that we're being lullabied all along. It's like being in the Matrix, for those of you who are Matrix fans. That's what it is right now. It's bad now. And so what does it take to push the masses of people in this country to say no more, not on my watch? That is where I come out on this. And I understand that the point that you are making, that some people want it to be broke for the sake of them. They think if it gets bad enough, people will move. It's already bad enough. It was bad enough before we got to Trump 2.0. but people were so comfortable with the personality that was in the White House. The fact that he wore sunglasses and could be considered cool. He's somebody's uncle or somebody's grandfather. So the fact that you didn't have universal health care, but wait a minute, he drives a sports car. The fact that you don't have universal health care, but he gets out and he says the soul of America. And I'm only using President Biden as an example, so being any other leader. So the veil has been taken off again. There are other generations of people who saw this country without the veil. Then there are generations who only see the veil. And so it just keeps going on and on and on. So it's already broken as far as I'm concerned. The question becomes, what are the collective we going to do about it? What actions are we going to take to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Or at least that we minimize people's suffering. That's it.
It is interesting that you've seen the countries that have the social democratic social contract, even when there's a little bit of a lurch to the right, none of them, England had the largest self-inflicted wound with Brexit, but none of the other countries have even, come close to that. And they maintain their national healthcare systems. They maintain the social safety net. And it's not all just Western Europe. It's South Korea, it's Japan, Taiwan. Make what will about the democratic politics of those countries, but the social safety net remains intact. I mean, Taiwan, I think, is the most recent prosperous nation in the world to develop a universal healthcare system, and it's one of the most efficient in the world. And the idea that it would be that the Taiwanese people would vote to end that, no country has ever ended their universal single healthcare system.
That's right.
They're immensely popular. Hey, so up next, let's go to Babette, and then we'll go all the way through to Dorothy, and we'll end. Everybody gets a minute because I think we're past Nina's time. I think we can tell Nina's made a meal for herself. So here we are.
My sweetie Alan was waiting on me to season the meat, so
Oh,
I was holding him up. He got it now. He has it. So we're good.
Babette here from Milwaukee. I wanted to know what the numbers were on the and the name of the person sponsoring the Reparations Act, because I think here would be a lot of people would be interested. And also, I'd love to have you on our show on WXRW here in Milwaukee, and maybe Alan can set that up for us.
Oh, I'd be happy to facilitate any media appearances for Nina Turner. If Nina's up for him, I'm all for him.
Yes, I'm up for it. Thank you.
It's Summer Lee has introduced the bill. So the excellent Congresswoman, who we all understand is going to be targeted by the same forces
again.
Last time in that district, what happened is an elected official from whose district, assembly district, I think, had an overlap, jumped out and ran, and the APEC people were not satisfied with her as a candidate. So they did not invest heavily in their numbers came in, and it showed that she was going to pull 35%, but that she had very little capacity to be lifted up, even with their money and resources, to compete with Summer Lee. So that person jumping in ended up a major reason why APEC invested to a degree, but not heavily. They are hand selecting their candidate this time, is what all the sort of recon intelligence I've heard about the district says. And they're going to amp up into the multi millions of dollars to try to remove Summer Lee from office. So Summer Lee is the person introducing it. She's also co-introduced with Ro Khanna an excellent piece of legislation calling for the outlawing of dark money in elections. So yeah, that's from Summer Lee. Shall I move on to the stack, or any further thoughts, Nina?
No.
Okay, Daniela, you're up. Please unmute, Daniela.
I'm trying to unmute. Can you hear me now?
We can indeed, yes.
I really worry about the negativity generalizing species. We've survived on God is love. We've survived mostly on mother and father love through the species, through the ages. And I have many thoughts, but I wonder what, Nina, I met you last time you were here at the town hall, and I was raped by the Klan when I was 20 and innocent and idealistic for integrating Selma's first TV station, WSLA TV. I went on an old black gospel show right after the first Freedom Ride, May 1961. And I think we need to remember what Jesse Jackson said. We need a rainbow coalition of people of color and women, because these fascists are very anti-women and anti-life in general, anti-human wellness in general. And so I wondered what you'd say about that, and also about the No King's Day coming up on Saturday, June 14. And what do you think about Bernie announcing right on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert that AIPAC controls the Democratic Party?
Thank you,
Well,
Daniela.
Yeah, thank you. And I definitely remember you telling that story. I remember pausing and not letting us move past it. So I, definitely appreciate your courage and your heart. To answer the last question, which is the easiest one, I'm glad that Senator Sanders said that. It's something that he has known for a while. There's a bubbling up in this country to recognize AIPAC in the same way that the National Rifle Association would be unacceptable, that their money would be unacceptable for any Democrat, put it in air quotes, to take. That should be the same thing of AIPAC or any other dark money group, especially when that group is advocating for a foreign nation over the needs, the desires, the wants of the American people. So I'm glad that Senator Sanders said that. He's always been a champion. I think he's getting stronger on that. And then there's a whole social media handle, Reject AIPAC. So for those of you who are on Twitter, I'm not sure, I think they're on Instagram too, but it's Reject AIPAC. That did not exist when I ran. I mean, all of this, my race was the canary in the coal mine. Certainly wasn't the first race that AIPAC has entered into, obviously, but it was the first one to that magnitude, so that they could then plot their strategy for how they came after Bowman, how they came after Bush, how they are going to come back around to get Summerlee. And I believe they will try to mess with Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib as well. So we have to stand up and protect these members, because they stand up for what is right, for what is just, and for what is good.
Do you
As far
think
as
we'll really have fair midterms? I'm worried we aren't going to have any midterms by the time we get there. What do you think about that?
I mean, we will have midterms. I mean,
Oh, Nina, you just got muted somehow. How'd that happen?
oh, okay. I unmuted myself. I think we will have fair primary, as much as we can call it fair. I mean, if the two private organizations known as the DNC and the RNC stay out of it, then they will be fair to an extent. I mean, if you have Republican controlled legislatures that try to manipulate through law, which they could try to do, then those are hurdles we always have to jump. We've always had to jump those types of hurdles even before President Trump. It's just like putting gas, it's putting an accelerant on it, Alan. That's what I would say. There's an accelerant on the stuff that we're going through. But I do hold, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because obviously you know all about what it means to be a Secretary of State. And actually, let me bounce this off you, because I need to clarify with an expert, and you qualify as an expert on this. My understanding is that the SAVE Act shenanigans that they're going to pull will be challenged in court, and then it'll basically be up to the discretion of the secretaries of states, so that you'll have a worsening of the situation among Republican. But those states are so gerrymandered in House districts already. There are very few seats that the Republicans can pick up in Republican-controlled states, because they've gerrymandered them so extremely. So the pickups that the Democrats would need in the 2026 House elections, they can win the House in Wisconsin. Well, if they redraw Wisconsin, New York, just they can win in New York and California, so the SAVE Act shenanigans. But I do think vigilance is the order of the day, because they'll try to press it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that your
Everything
sense?
that Alan said is correct. Yeah, that's definitely my sense. And it's another reason why we should not overlook state elections. State elections matter
Yeah.
even more now than they did before. Thank God that we have, like, for example, Attorney General Keith Ellison in Minnesota. Thank God. I think we got about 12 or 14 AGs who are Democrats to different degrees. But if they're
Yeah.
justice minded, then thank God we have them we cannot overlook what the state legislatures matter and state constitutional offices matter as well.
Though if we could clone A.G. Ellison, that would be
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah, because he's fantastic.
One of a
Marcial,
kind.
Marcial, you're up. Please unmute Marcial.
Wow. Nina, you are a bright light in our firmament. Oh my God,
Thank
you burst with energy and love and positivity, and you make me feel like everything can be okay. The guy who cuts my hair, I suspect he's a little bit right wing. And he says that he watches Fox and then MSNBC. And it's a false equivalence because Fox actually lies. So they're not really equivalent. And so, I told him that. And then he was asking about DEI and how I define it. And he said, well, a white person will apply for the same jobs as a black person, but the white person won't get it because they got to have and it was like, I told him, no, and I know that's quotas. And then I tried to explain to him about redlining and that group of people who it was a black neighborhood in, I think, the 1800s, where it was a complete town that was built all by black brothers and sisters, and the KKK burned it down. I say, how do you answer to that? And redlining. And then yesterday, I was at the Jackie Robinson Center, and guess what? There was a chart educating me even more on redlining. So now I have more ammunition to talk to this person because I'm trying to educate him. So thank you. And we need a charismatic leader, one leader who is like you, very simply explaining things to the public, not someone who talks in too high a language, because the public needs simplicity.
Well, this is my central theory as to why they spent so much money to keep Senator Turner out of Congress.
Oh, thank you. And I agree. I'm so glad that you're having that conversation with your right wing person, because communication is the only way that we're gonna have a breakthrough. And so if he is willing to talk to you and you're willing to talk to him, I think that is beautiful. That is magic. So keep it going. As far as the Black town, I'm not sure which one you were referring to. There have been several, but I believe you may have been referring to Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, an entirely self-contained Black community. And these members, I know it might make people feel good to say they were KKK. All of them certainly were not card-carrying members of the KKK. It was just white folks who just got into a tizzy, domestic terrorism, and they rained terror down on those folks. Somebody, Alan, put in the chat, read summer of 1919. That's a whole nother conversation, but you're absolutely right. In the summer of 1919.
Oh, yeah.
All over the country in urban areas, white people just started attacking, violating, beating up, and killing Black people. War, so anyway, that's a whole nother lesson. But there are those moments where those backlashes continue to happen, and even being a Black person who served in the military did not protect you from white terrorism, domestic terrorism. These things are all real. But again, I salute you for talking to your conservative person. Just keep the lines of communications open, because obviously he's curious in some way, and it's something about you two talking that you pique each other's interest, and hopefully you both will get some understanding, even if you never agree.
Yeah, and it's painful again, but it's got to be said. I think everybody needs to be vigilant about what they're going to try to do to whitewash, and word intentionally selected, American history, because
right.
Chicago summer 1919 was in the AP history course that my daughter just took, and they'll try to get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rick, LaMonica, Brian, and Dorothy, we are really long on time here, so try to be as brief as possible. Rick, you're up. Please unmute.
Yeah,
You're up, Rick. We can hear you.
I just want to remind, I'm sure she knows this, but she's not talking about. Our racism goes back to pre-colonial times, and we were starting genocide Indians way before we had blacks to pick on and started slavery. And we did the same thing with upper classes versus union or labor. And when we started having cities, and that was the basis of federalism Jeffersonian during our colonial times. So racism is inherent in our blood. I don't know what you call it for you people that are political scientists instead of scientists. And but it's easy to excuse all this stuff instead of actually trying to do something about it. And the problem we have is neither party wants to do anything about it. The Republicans like the racism. The Democrats are too timid to do anything. They can't get off their ass and haven't figured out how to get off their ass since Reagan was in the White House. So I think we need some brains in the Democratic Party, and maybe you and Ellen and some people that are more politically orientated can give us some better ideas on how to do that. Because I don't see the Democratic Party moving, and I haven't seen them move since JFK was in the White House, with the exception of maybe Carter. It's gone downhill ever since then.
Well, Jesse Jackson had all the energy in the Democratic Party in 1984, 1988. Bernie did in 2016 and 2020. So the base can be persuaded. Nina, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you for naming the Jackson and somebody, the Rainbow Coalition and all that good stuff. And certainly Reverend Jackson really got the party started in modern times. I mean, there have been other people. I would say, Rick, I do not necessarily disagree with anything that you had to say, but I want to put some texture on it. Both parties are complicit in anti-Blackness. Of course, I understand the Native Americans. Of course, I understand the labor fight. That's why I say it's caste and class. But out of those groups, there's only one group that was chattel slavery. The products of that are only the descendants, Black Americans or Africans, and then their American descendants. So while there are some similarities and some threads and themes in those struggles and that type of bigotry and hate for working class people, for working people, all, writ large, no matter how you identify or how you're made to identify, chattel slavery is in its own category. And I need folks who work on racial justice to understand that. That doesn't take away from what happened to the Native Americans. It doesn't take away from what this country did to try to crush labor unions. It doesn't take away what happened to women or our gay, lesbian, transgender community. It doesn't take anything away from any of those groups. But the chattel slavery is in a category all by itself. That is irrefutable. Now, you said that the Republicans I'm paraphrasing you, Republicans like racism, Democrats don't know what to do about it. I would argue that both of them are complicit in it. Let us not forget that the Democratic Party was the party of the slave holder.
Yeah.
And it was the radical Republicans who were on the opposite side of that to a point. I mean, to a large point, don't get me wrong, because the Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution are profound. However, there came a point where even the radical Republicans were willing to negotiate away the rights of Black people. So leads me back to kind of how I started this, that this country never intended for people who come from people like me in all our various hues to walk in this country free. And the Democratic Party was the party of the slave holder. So I don't give either one of these parties a pass. And that's another reason why Black people voted overwhelmingly before FDR for the Republican Party. and not the Democratic Party. So we got to be very clear. And I have a conservative brother, and we do this dance almost every day. So he would be proud that I'm making it clear that anti-blackness, he wouldn't agree with me with this, but anti-blackness is in the DNA of this country, and it doesn't matter party affiliation. When we get to the root causes of it, ultimately, whenever there was going to be Black progress, Black people's progress was negotiated away. It was compromised away, Brother Allen, as I can say. There was always some grand bargain that left Black people having the short end of the stick. But Democrats are really no better than Republicans in a systemic way. And the Democratic Party, go research it, I know it might blow your mind, was the party of the slaveholder.
Yeah, and I also think too that I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and so certainly my understanding of social oppression in the United States of America is, and the definitional role of anti-blackness is profoundly resonant with me, having grown up in a metropolitan area where the race class divide was so pronounced. I was at Yale in the time when there were the anti-apartheid demonstrations, and of course I participated in them, and very, very, very much so. And but I also was aghast at the town gown and race class divide of New Haven, and relatively appalled that my fellow Yaleys didn't see what was right in front of them in the society they were living in, and could combine it with the critique of South Africa. And also, I also always feel too, sitting here in Los Angeles, California, if you look at the death and statistics from actually the Israel-Palestine conflict, plus the troubles in Northern Ireland, through about a 12-year period, the number of people killed in both of them combined is lower than in South Central Los Angeles, right? And it's just the dehumanization of Black life that had everybody in the country and the world largely unattentive to what was going on. So yeah, I agree with Nina 100%. And Brian, please unmute, Brian. Brian, or over to Dorothy.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. You're up then, Dorothy.
All right, thank you. Hey, Nina, I just want to inform you, since I've been heavily focused on the DNC and the attempt to get rid of David Hogg, almost as some false messiah. Well, I don't know. They've been doing that since he won, but my biggest fear that he may be disqualified from running for re-election since the election results was notified. So I was wondering if you could run for DNC vice chair with Malcolm Kenyatta in case if he gets disqualified.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for that, Brother Brian. Listen, I've been in conversations with Rep. Kenyatta. I love his spirit and his heart. I mean, he had more votes than anybody, even David Hogg. That's quite intriguing, but I'm told, Brian, that no new anybody that did not run the first time cannot just get in on the action. So you and I, great minds think alike, because trust me, there were people calling me about that exact same thing. We wanted to blow it up, baby, that me and Rep. Kenyatta would run together. But I'm told, because I didn't run originally, that somebody like me could not just jump in. As far as David Hogg, I have some mixed feelings about this, not in the challenge to the Democratic Party to say that we should have primaries. And I am somebody that challenges the Democratic Party all the time. But this is my contention. I believe you could challenge the Democratic Party as a member of the DNC, of which I was before. In my state, I did not get reappointed, which I didn't want to be, but I didn't get reappointed because that chair, they don't rock with Sister Turner. But I put that in the parking lot. I don't believe that you should be the vice chair.
sorry.
I don't believe that the vice chair of a party should set up a PAC or a super PAC to challenge Democrats in primaries if you want to be the vice chair. If you want to be a member, then that's fine. But if I were the chairman of the party and somebody pulled that on me, oh, we're going to do a dance. You don't do that. But as a member, yeah. And that doesn't mean what he's saying and pushing for the most part is right. But then there's some conflicts in what Brother Hogg is saying. And I know he's relatively young, but you all down for Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. But your PAC going to dictate which Democrat is the one. See, there's a conflict there and there's some hypocrisy there. And I hope that the young man learns from it. So, and I'm not so sure if he was out there in 23, like me and some others saying that there should be robust primaries. So, to make a long story less long, theoretically, I understand the push to challenge the party. That should happen. But if you're going to set up a whole different mechanism and be the vice chair, that can't happen. You could be a member or you could be on the outside. I'm old enough to remember when Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard was a vice chairwoman. She didn't set up a PAC. All she said to the folks is that what y'all doing to Senator Bernard Sanders is wrong. All she did, now I'm not talking about whether you agree with her right now or not, because I know that people that's percolating. I'm talking about at the time.
Yeah.
She was standing up for the right thing. She challenged the Democratic Party, and that's what a vice chair should do. And I remember the neoliberal power base forcing her out. She didn't set up a PAC. So Hogg is even getting different treatment from than what other people would get under the same circumstances. So Alan, that's a whole nother debate. I'm glad that our brother brought that up because I've been wanting to say something about that for the entire time. There's some privileges going on there as well with him that other people would not have gotten. And even if I disagree with the former Congresswoman, not for look, she a grown woman, she get to make her choices, but I'm talking to the courage that she displayed at the time and how she was vilified, and she didn't even have a PAC. She wasn't even trying to set up a PAC. She was just trying to get them to do the right thing.
Well, yeah, of course, at the time, in the historical context, there was somewhat of a parallel between Tulsi Gabbard and Nina Turner, too.
Yes. And you know what?
Someone stuck to their politics a little better than the other.
Duly noted. Sometimes I feel about her as I feel about RFK Jr. Sometimes, I mean, people are going to do what's in their heart, and people evolve, and sometimes people evolve the way we want them to.
Right.
Sometimes they evolve the way they were meant to evolve. And that's why I put air quotes the way we want them to. Yeah. But I will say, as being on the trail with her for Senator Sanders, for getting, having an opportunity to get to know her somewhat, I do believe in the same way that the Democratic Party pushed RFK Jr. over, I believe that the Congresswoman was pushed over too. Now, I might be wrong because she might have evolved to where she really wanted to be. Like that might really be home for her. And I accept that. But I also can accept that she was done wrong by the Democratic Party for less than what David Hogg is doing.
Yeah, the thing with Tulsi Gabbard too, and people might beat me up for even suggesting any kind of.
They ain't gonna beat you up. I'm here. I got you.
No, because I've not heard anybody ask her, "Do you still support Medicare for all?"
That's
right, because it's all stuff about the CIA and
that's right,
and then a few other things too.
I'm not mad, and the Biden administration targeting her and putting her on a list and all that kind of. See, I ain't down. See that's. I'm just not down for that kind of stuff, Alan. Really.
Oh yeah, no, and the horrible treatment of Marianne Williamson by the press secretary. Yeah.
Yeah, that part, not for any of it. Yeah.
Which is Marianne Williamson's understanding of the toxicity and then still of the Democratic Party, but then the importance of she's stuck with the party and called on people to reform and transform the party. Certainly it's in line with what PDA has always stood for. So and we know it's a struggle. We know the Democratic Party is so rotten at its core in terms of the people who control it. But we're in this paradox where, the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, and Dorothy, you will be up in a second, 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, Data for Progress did polling on it. And the base of the Democratic Party overwhelmingly supports our positions.
Sure.
In fact, we have majoritarian policies in terms of the general public, you know. So, hey, Dorothy, you're up. Please unmute, Dorothy. You get the final question. How you doing, Dorothy? Dorothy. Dorothy, please unmute. Sometimes Dorothy
I don't want to
gets
miss what
distracted on these
Dorothy has
things.
to say.
I know, Dorothy, come on, unmute. Well,
Well,
I think Hearts is probably won.
Yeah,
we got
while
it.
we're waiting.
I
Yeah,
got
while
it.
we're
I
waiting
got
on-
it. I got it. Okay, here I am. So first of all, let me say, let us not forget who wants to pardon the killer of George Floyd.
He
Yeah.
can't pardon him, but go ahead. I mean, he can
But
pardon
he
him,
can't pardon him. He can pardon him for the federal.
He can pardon him, but
he
he's
would if
staying
he
in-
could.
he's gonna stay
He
in
would
prison.
if he could.
Dorothy,
Okay.
he's staying in prison for 22 years.
Let's not forget that. So I just want to say that, I mean, I've been fighting the Democratic Party establishment for decades. And all of you know that I've been fighting for Palestinians. I hated Joe Biden first, trust me. But this is not a time to get a circular firing squad going. We need to circle the wagons and we need to attack the fascists. And now it's going to be easier than it was in 2024 because now it's actually happening. And we have actions that we can point at: ending birthright citizenship, attacking our universities, attacking the Department of Education, attacking all of the institutions that make America America, as flawed as it is. The Republicans are going after everything, from our healthcare you just go down the list of everything that makes America good, and they're attacking it. And we need to start fighting the fight.
Why don't I play? I'll be the one who's going to take the blows from Dorothy here. Okay, Dorothy, I agree with you, of course, fundamentally. And by the way, there's an article in the most recent New York Review of Books. It's all written sort of in satire, but just lists all the things that the Trump administration has done.
There's a big article in the New Republic too about what the Democrats need to do, why they lost, and what they need to do. It's terrifying what the Democratic Party is doing to itself. And much as I
just want to point out, Trade, you could not take what Trump. It would be almost impossible, given the reaction of the entire global capitalist class to the tariff regime that Trump originally introduced, to find a way to not make it the opposition have a boost. But they reverted back to free trade. I mean, we have to.
Yeah, that's the Democratic Party needs to learn what to say when these things are happening.
So there's nothing wrong with what Nina and I are doing here in focusing and
I'm not
critique.
saying there's anything wrong, but we need to work on messaging. We need to get Democrats to say what his policies are doing to people. We can't have all this theoretical stuff.
Alan,
so this is
I
all about messaging.
I gotta jump in here, and I appreciate you wanting to take the blows for me. But I'm gonna be very clear with Dorothy or anybody else on this call.
Yeah.
To mention the pardoning of the police, like he's the only one that wants to pardon the police officer, Derek Chauvin. Dorothy, and
well, he does.
But let me just say this to you, saying that to me, as a Black, that means nothing to me. And you know why it means nothing to me? It's because when the Democrats had the opportunity to pass the George Floyd Policing and Justice Act, they didn't do it in the first 2 years that they were in control. So while I totally understand where you are coming from, part of the reason why the Democrats are in the position they are in right now is because they put their head in the sand, they lied to people, and they were hypocrites. And the Democrats are going to have to deal with that. And us not telling the truth about it, even in the midst
but
of
we still need to elect Democrats. We still need to get rid of
one at a time.
By not telling the truth.
Yeah, but we can't. We have to get rid of Trump. By beating up on ourselves, it's not going to help us get rid of Trump.
Dorothy,
we just telling the truth. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and not only that. Look, we're a long way from primary season, and we have to push. What we're pushing, we think will be the winning hand for the Democratic Party. You're right.
Well, I hope so, but I think that we really need to go after the real enemy, which is
This
Trump
is not,
and
but
Project
you know what, Alan?
2025 and
All
all
right,
these
I'll be
people who are
quiet. You let me know when I can come back in.
with all of their edicts, all of their what do you call the things he keeps signing? You know, just one after another, and the Supreme Court can't even keep up with him.
Right, and obviously
executive orders is what he's
Yeah.
doing.
Right.
okay. So okay. So,
Alan,
but
I need to
we're at the end
close.
of the time. We're at 3:00.
I
So
need to-
Dorothy's made her point, and let's hear final word from Nina, and then let's.
Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just want to assuage people putting our head in the sand and pretending like Donald Trump 2.0 is brought to you gift wrapped by neoliberal Democrats. Not the faithful of the party like Dorothy or anybody else, but it is brought. And we, James Baldwin, you guys have heard me say this all before. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And we have to face the fact that the failure of the Democratic Party is what got us here. That doesn't give the Republicans license to do what they're doing right now. It doesn't, but they're doing it. And this is about raw power. And the people who are getting hurt are the people who least can afford it. So when I go out and travel the country, people are mad at the Democratic Party's approval rating is at 27%. Republicans, 34%. And that is not because on calls like PDA, we telling the truth about the party. It is because there is a reckoning happening in the streets where people now know that they have been lied to and that the Democratic Party leadership, not the faithful, can and should be doing a better job regardless of Trump. Because President Biden had the same exact authority of executive order, governing by executive order, which I don't like, but he had the exact same authority as President Donald J. Trump. And the Democrats did very little. I won't say absolutely nothing, but they did very little. And they had many tools in their toolbox. So let me end on a positive note. And listen, people can feel how you want to feel. I am not here to cape for the Democratic Party. I never have and I never will. Even when I served in the legislature and had to be in a caucus, I think us focusing in on what's best for the Democratic Party is wrong. We should focus in on what's best for the people. And the party needs to come along with it. And if the party doesn't come along with it, we don't need the party. See, we got our things wrong. We sit up here lifting up people whose children go to school. You don't think when President Obama was at President Carter's funeral, and he was sitting right next to President Donald J. Trump, who some labeled as Hitler, et cetera, et cetera. So he's sitting up there kikiing. As my sweetheart said, if that was Hitler, would he be kikiing with Hitler? These people have us messed up in the mind because their kids go to the same schools, they go to the same country clubs, they in the same circles, and guess what? They can pick up the phone and call each other. Okay, but whenever they want to.
Yeah.
So don't center the Democratic Party, don't center the Republican Party, center the people, progressives. That's what we do best. Love you, PDA.
Love you too.
It's coming from Toni Morrison. The true function of freedom is to free somebody else. And ultimately, that is what we are doing. That is what you do, PDA, as a matter of mission, which is you understand the true function of freedom. We're here to free somebody else. And whether those somebodies are in LA, whether they are in Chi-Town, whether they are in Cleveland, Ohio, East Palestine, baby, that is the function of freedom. So, my God, I love you all.
Love you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening, man. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to, as Mike Fox says, put a bow on it. And I want to thank, of course, Senator Nina Turner and for staying with us for 2 full hours, folks. That's beyond the call of duty for any guests on our call. But, Nina is PDA family. Thank you so much, Senator Turner, for that. Very, very illuminating in all your thoughts and comments. And I want to thank everybody who spoke up and asked questions. Stay with us. We're going to go to family time. Mike Fox is going to take over. And I want to thank Hearts of Gray. I want to thank Mike Fox, of course. I want to thank Jim Langford and all of the team that's working behind the scenes to get these productions going. And thank you to William Walter, who I saw joined us too from the YPDA steering committee, and all the people who joined us, and of course to Donna Smith as well. Okay, everyone, thank you, and Mike Fox, take it away.